Okay, first we're going to start out, and we do have a topic tonight, but again, like all nets, if there's more questions or comments about something else, we can move it on to another week. So, does anybody have any questions or have an issue with the with anything? Please call them now. I just want to make one comment before we get going here. Thank you, Terry. I hear you're on there. Great job. I'm sorry I didn't have time to talk to you afterwards. As usual, we kind of get buried at the end of these things. But thank you very much. Super show. I have had nothing but great emails about you. Thank you, sir.
Welcome, Joe, and to everybody else on the net. I was pleased to do it.
Any other questions, comments, or anything else? Let's call now. Okay, our topic for tonight is, and we're not trying to start an argument, but we'd like to start a conversation about this, and this is digital radio, which includes, FT8, DMR, D-Star, of course, System Fusion, and all of the others. Carrie, you've had a lot of experience with D-Star. Would you care to comment on that?
But that there is, I say, better up right now because it takes a little bit for you to think about things too, but it's a data format for using voice over and everything else. So back to Joe in 0 WIQ.
Well, is there anybody else out there that has had a lot of experience with one of the digital modes? Call now. Well, since there's nobody out there that wants to talk about it, I'm going to kind of start one up. I have worked with two of the modes. I've worked with System Fusion, which of course is on the Yaesu models, and I've worked with the DMR, which is on originally Motorola's. Now they're on TYTs and some of the other brands too. And how many people out there have got the old TYT 380?
Everyone already see. I have a 390.
That'll work. Have you ever used it?
I've tinkered with it here and there.
What's your experience with it?
Once you get past the programming, it seems to be pretty reliable and simple. It just took me a little bit to get used to the different programming compared to like D-Star.
You bring up a good question. I've never used D-Star. What is the difference?
It seems to me that with the DMR, you have to map it out more. It may be a TYT thing also. You have to have your final destination and everything set in there. I haven't played with the front-end programming a whole lot, but the D-Star seems to be, one reflector hop here and there, and it's just simpler, for me anyhow.
Well, my understanding, and Lord knows I'm probably wrong about this, but I just thought I'd bring this up. My understanding when it comes to DMR versus the D-Star stuff is that with the DMR, of course, we have different repeaters that we've got set up locally, and we have one that's either Brandmeister, which basically will use the internet. But isn't D-Star pretty much just a solid internet type link?
I believe you can run repeater to repeater local on it. And then I would imagine it goes from the repeater down to the gateway, and then it runs internet, but that's about what DMR does too, as far as I know.
N0WIQ, a little more.
Oh, great, Kerry. Definitely come back, please.
All the digital modes that I know about carry a voice with it, with a digital mechanism, but all the digital modes I know about will do a radio to radio with the digital format also. And like D-Star, I got a hotspot in my house so that I can use the internet through my own hotspot too, because most people think are somewhat repeater limited also. And that's this radio and antenna and attic wouldn't go to a regular repeater, so I've used hotspots all the time. That's basically it. Back to Joe.
Well, I guess of course, you got to remember that you're playing with a semi-loaded deck when you're talking to me. Anyway, my understanding now hotspot, is that the same thing? Yeah, I mean, I've used hotspots, but if you bought a hotspot, don't you have to have some sort of connection with like Verizon or one of the phone companies, or is that just a wide open type thing? Kerry, if you'd like to answer that.
I don't know about other hotspots, but I know about the ones I've made for D-Star. And they use a Raspberry Pi and a D-Mega to make a hotspot. Now, I found that there's enough RF in my house that I've had to go to a Cat7 cabling for the places I use the hotspots in. And I found out that I had a double situation. The old Cat5 cable would let RF out that it would confuse Raspberry Pis if they were close to it. And likewise, the Raspberry Pis make enough noise to cloud up the Cat5 cable. So that's why I've gone to Cat7, because it is double shielded. And then I've mounted most of my Raspberry Pis in metal cases, so they don't give out RFI too much either. And that's my story.
Okay, so in other words, what it means is that your hotspot is actually looking at your router, just like any Wi-Fi signal. Is that correct?
Oh, yes, the hotspots are linked up on my local area network, and then it goes through the router just fine, because I don't have a server on my net, so I am thinking about putting a DNS server on my net, and that might make a difference of how things work. But my Cisco Nexus router just has been doing fine, and it even has been getting my data speeds up quite a bit since I've gone to the Cat7 cable too. I can get data downloads in the 6 to 8 gigabytes RAM, and I can go out at something like 100 gigabytes and all that kind of stuff. So at least that's what the speed checks on the internet tell me.
Well, I'm okay. Now you're linking your radio through the hotspot, or tied probably to a Raspberry Pi or whatever, and you're going into and I don't know what the terms are for D-Star. I have to use DMR terms. A Brandmeister network that's an internet network off of somebody's repeater. Is that correct?
Yes, there's a D-Star repeater in Fort Collins, and if I had an appropriate antenna and everything, I could reach it with this radio, but this radio only does 20 watts, and so I couldn't use D-Star repeaters, and I built one of myself, which is effectively what the hotspot is a local repeater in my home or in my shack, so that I can use even more power. So like I've got my radio set on 5 watts, and with D-Star I can jump around the world with 5 watts, or less even.
Now, please, if anyone else has any comments or questions, please jump in there right away. Please do, because this is kind of an important subject, and I'll tell you why in just a minute or not. Well, Carrie or someone answer this question then. You built your hotspot and this and that, but say you're out someplace that you don't have a network. Could you use a phone as a hotspot like we do on computers and stuff?
November 0, Bravo Tango Charlie.
Bravo Tango Charlie, go ahead.
That is correct. You can use your mobile network as a hotspot. So what you do is you use your tethering or Wi-Fi hotspot from your phone and connect the Raspberry Pi to it, and then you can use your radio in your pocket. You can use your radio and have the actual Raspberry Pi in your pocket. I do that pretty commonly when I'm on my way to work or home from work, and then when I'm back at home or at work, I use the Wi-Fi supplied by either the office or the house here.
MIC comment.
Well, that means you have to have a computer in line with it, I would assume, which the Raspberry Pi would take the responsibility of. But you'd always have to have that. Is there certain software you run, or you just the radio recognizes the Raspberry Pi?
I believe MIC had a comment, and then I can answer.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Mark. Go ahead, please.
I have a slightly off-topic comment related to Carrie's comment about switching to Cat 7. I have also switched to Cat 7 cabling all throughout my house because I discovered that transmitting with a 5-watt handheld in very close proximity to a Cat 5 cable would cause my router to lock. Back to net.
0 WIQ, the comment.
Okay, please go ahead.
I shun away from Wi-Fi for the most part, because if anybody is aware of it, if you have a fairly wide noise transmitter with some power next to a Wi-Fi, you can confuse everything, because Wi-Fi is more interruptible than cables are.
Mark, you said one thing that I didn't understand. You said the rotor locks up. I'm sorry, router locks up. What do you mean by that?
Oh, I have a Wi-Fi network router, and I have most of the devices in my house connected to the router with I had Cat5 cable, and I discovered that if I was transmitting on a handheld radio at 5 watts in close proximity, like within a foot of a Cat5 cable, my transmission from my handheld would cause my router, R-O-U-T-E-R, to lock up, and then I would have to go pull the plug, cycle power, give it a while, let it reboot, and it would come back up. I switched from Cat5 cable, which is not shielded, to Cat7 cable, which is both each pair is shielded and the whole cable is shielded, and the problem has gone away.
Okay. Well, back to, like I said, if anybody else has got any comments or questions, please jump in there. Please do. Getting back to this router versus... Alexis is answering me a question that I didn't even ask. We say you have to have a Raspberry Pi, and I hate to be honest with you, I'm familiar with the unit, but I'm not familiar with how they work. So is there software you load to that, or is it just automatic?
N0BTC.
Yes, sir.
So the way this whole fun thing works is that
I think somebody's got their mic keyed.
1DEG.
Mike, can you help us?
I'm not going to be able to help you. I'm just going to add to technical issues. Echolink is not allowing my brother to get in from North Dakota there. Just FYI there, Joe.
Thanks, Mike. Somebody's got their mic keyed, so we're kind of blocked. I'm glad you're still there.
W0BUH.
Go ahead, BUH.
Yeah, when I set up my Pi-Star, there was an admin page, so I just connected my HT through that with the admin page, and I logged in using my password to my network.
Go ahead, Mike.
I'll say this much. My brother has purchased a TYT UV 3800, and we need to get it programmed. Don't have the cable to program it. And we also have two Pi Zeros here. So we need to get together with somebody that can give assistance on building a node, so then that way we can use it on the road. My brother would like to be able to use it when he goes to North Dakota or wherever he goes. The convenient thing is his truck has all-time internet connection, so he'll be able to stay connected, you know what I mean? Anyway, that's all I have to say. K1DEG.
Well, Mike, you said 3800. You mean you got a TYT 380? Is that correct?
That's probably that. Yeah. That's what I meant to say, but I haven't. Didn't come out correctly. Sorry.
Well, I got a programming cable for it, and Rocky Mountain Ham has got a code plug for it. and the talk group 3721, and I'm probably off of my numbers. It's a Brandmeister network, but that's local.
Right. Well, took it over and tried to get it programmed, and something's going on with this particular radio, or it was the cable. You know, we're not exactly 100% sure, but it's not acting completely correct. It is programmed. It's got my DMR number in it, but it's not working correctly, so I want to get a second opinion, second person to look at it and say, oh, this is the problem, and then show me, so then that way I'll know, oh, okay, if it does that, I know what to do. K1DEG.
Well, to the best of my knowledge, and I could be wrong, I really could be wrong about this, the repeater is what gets you onto an internet link, and I don't know of any interlink links for DMR. Somebody's out there, I could be wrong, let me know.
To my knowledge, you do need to go into a repeater. I don't believe there's interlinks between repeaters where one repeater can talk to another repeater and get you in that way in 0BTC.
Where are you?
Go back, come back.
Hey, hello everybody. It's my first Colorado Net. KE5ZRU. My name is Ann, and I'm living here in Loveland. Anyway, I wanted to ask what model of Raspberry Pi is everybody buying for this?
Somebody's going to have to answer that question because I don't even own one. Please do.
And one RDC.
Yes, sir.
I believe the one I built here is a Raspberry Pi 3 Bravo Plus. That's my plans with it, is to put a hotspot up to it one of these days, but there's so many fun other projects you can do, I haven't gotten there yet.
Roger that. Thank you.
0WIQ. Comment about Raspberry Pis?
WIQ, go ahead.
My hotspots are built with a Raspberry Pi 3 with the Raspbian setup on it, so I downloaded a code for it to run D-Star on it, and so it can be run on Raspberry Pi 2 or 3 or even 3 Plus, but there might be issues with the Raspberry Pi 3B Plus, which I put in a 64-bit operating system on it. But I don't think, I don't know anything about getting things loaded onto it to work for the hotspots either, so there's issues with the 3B Plus because it's just enough different than the other previous Raspberry Pis that it just might not work the same way if you load the code in it for doing a hotspot.
Roger that. Well, I appreciate the information. We're actually looking at trying to get somebody on the air, and that seems like a really great way to get them to the rest of the world without costing us an arm and a leg.
RDC with a comment.
I am assuming that you're talking about going the D-Star route, is that correct?
Well, we've got a family member that has, we're just now getting him back on the air. And, yeah, we're trying to go the D-Star route as opposed to trying to set up his entire rig. He's got several rigs, and we don't have the tower or anything for the antenna. I don't even know if we have the antenna that'll match what rigs he has, so this just seems like the perfect route for us.
Well, there is a cheaper way if you want to do that, and this is basically Echolink, and I realize that it's through a computer, and everybody goes, oh my God, no. But Echolink, you wouldn't need anything. You could do it on a phone.
Yeah, no, that's not going to work in this situation. I can already feel the finger being wagged at me, and he's all the way across town and in bed already. So, no, I don't think that would happen. So, I think this route would probably be a little bit better, and we're all looking for a project to do together. So, a little project like this to start with wouldn't be bad. I'm also looking at building a J-pole to kind of get things kicked off a little bit.
RDC with a comment.
Go ahead, sir. You have the floor.
Hey, Joe, I don't remember all the particulars on it, but I do believe there are some hotspots out there that will work off of Windows, and I'm sure a Mac machine, too. So you could also save the expense of having to build a Raspberry Pi, hook it into what you have sitting at home already.
LAO with a comment.
Leo, go ahead.
I can't hear her name. VRU, you need to get in your radio a bit more because we can hardly hear you at all. We turn you up and the rest of them blow our doors off.
My apologies. I'm usually the loudest one around. I was being quiet because I was afraid I was going to blow everybody else's doors off. Okie doke. Well, I'll just be myself. Thanks a bunch for the info.
That was perfect. K0LAO.
N0WIQ, another comment about hotspots.
WIQ, go ahead.
I think HRO handles some ready-made hotspots. They also have a kit down there for a hotspot also. And so it's one of those things that you're going to spend $100 or a couple $100 for different hotspots, even if you build them, because like the Raspberry Pi is $35 and the Big is $130, so at least the dual band ones are. And that's a comment.
BTC with comment.
I think it was ETC, go ahead.
Yeah, November 0, Bravo, Tango, Charlie. There definitely are pre-made hotspots. I'm almost totally blind myself, and so I can't do the soldering and everything from the kits, but I managed to pull one from eBay. It's monoband, it's UHF, but when you're that close to it, it really doesn't matter, and my hotspot will go through 8 floors of my apartment building, which is all steel and concrete, and I can talk on it from the lobby, and it's 8 floors above me. So the things work great for what they are.
Wow, thanks a bunch, guys. This is super helpful information, something that, having been out of the hobby for a while, I had no clue we could even use. So that's great. Thanks a whole bunch.
Lan, you're more than welcome. It has changed so much, probably in the last 5 to 10 years. That's amazing what you can do now. And you know, the digital thing is not very old. I would guess maybe, well, it probably originally goes back a few years. But as far as the ham local stuff, it's only been around for the last 5, maybe 6 years, I would think, around here. So we're all kind of new at it. But Mark, you always worked with some Raspberry Pi. What do you recommend?
W2MIC, not I. I am looking at getting one, but have not used one yet.
Okay. I know, Carrie, you're kind of the expert. You were using them years ago, weren't you? Now, you said something about a dual mode. Is that a 2.4 to a 5 gig? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, yes, you can load it with software that'll do multi-mode also. So if you have the radios to do mode, you can use one of those. Most of the pre-built hotspots will do multi-mode because that's the way they are built. And a lot of them are using what they call Pi-Star. And I had a problem with Pi-Star when I tried to use it, so I gave up using it because it gave me a headache because I had to reprogram my radio. Well, reprogram, that's wrong. The radio wasn't making a packet that would work with Pi-Star. And so I had to repair the repeater list in my radio to work with Pi-Star. And I had to be able to recognize what was going on so I could do that. And then I got the radio properly set up so it'd make a proper packet that Pi-Star would use. And of course there's a different setup for using Pi-Star than there is for D-Star Commander like I've been using. So there's that situation also. But my radio, I had the repeater replaced in it because I did a full reset on the radio and had to replace the repeater list. The repeater list offline to go into the radio, but the repeater list offline thing that was found so it wouldn't the proper packet for Pi-Star. So I had to figure all that out. I had to download the repeater list and edit it myself. Back to net.
Well, this is KD0TYU for ID, and I'm the net control for this evening's TechNet. I guess what I'm saying is, has anybody but me and my good friends over in Fort Collins ever worked on Fusion?
N0BTC.
0BTC, go ahead.
I have never worked directly on Fusion. I have done cross mode between DMR and Fusion because I'm a DMR user. I have made my hotspot do cross mode to Fusion Echolink. I will say that if you're going to do Fusion, it's probably best to have a Yaesu radio because for some reason some channels, like some Fusion rooms, you cannot get into with doing cross mode between different modes. So I couldn't get into MinWiz, for example, which is the Minnesota-Wisconsin room, which is one that is local to me. But I could get into Echolink, and I think it's got something to do with software versions on the Yaesu side. They've managed to do something that locks out other modes, and they break the compatibility on purpose, because Fusion is a closed system owned by Yaesu. whereas something like DMR is an open system that anybody can modify and use, which is why you have Fusion on Yaesu radios, but that's it, and then DMR is on like a bunch of different manufactured radios.
You're absolutely right. And if you're really interested in lawsuits and things like that, Ham Nation, which is on Wednesday night, I do a little exercising usually during the day, and I listen to them like on Thursday morning or something. And there was a lawsuit that actually Motorola sued Hytera, which is, of course, the TYT. I'm assuming is the TYTs and the Baofangs, the rest of these guys. And it come to find out that they threw the thing out of court, and so Hytera went back and sued them for false things, and that's still going on. So, but you're right. I've only used it on a Yaesu radio, so that's why I'm doing this. But I'm curious why Kenwood. Does anybody know why Kenwood got into D-Star?
WIQ again.
WIQ, go ahead.
D-Star is touted as an open system, so that virtually anybody can use it. But on the other hand, some of the others take a subscription, so it's put into the selling of the radio, so that they can just use those radios for those digital mechanisms. So this is what I know about D-Star and a few of the others. And basically, if you have a SDR, a software-defined radio, supposedly you could do any digital you can do with a SDR. But on the other hand, you'd have to load in something that wouldn't cost much to do that, and if you had to charge a subscription fee to put it in there, you'd have to pass the subscription fee on to the customer that might buy the radio. So that's life. N0WIQ.
So far, to my knowledge, none of the Chinese companies have actually picked up on either one of the other two, the Fusion or the D-Star type thing. They've really hammered DMR. I guess it's because Motorola hadn't made a lot of money at it. But that's the only one that I know that is kind of across the board to the Chinese, at least. And then, of course, Kenwood came out a couple of years ago, I guess, with their D-Star, which kind of really surprised me because I thought ICOM had that thing wrapped up. But any other comments on that?
RDC.
MIC.
You have the floor.
Hey, Joe, D-Star for Kenwood makes a lot of financial sense, too, because it's already been developed. Like you were saying, it's open source, and it's still a growing and emerging market. So it kind of makes sense on the basic level, too, to join in on that and jump on the train.
So I guess unlike the C4, which is this Fusion, it's not legally owned by ICOM. Is that correct?
If my memory serves me correctly, D-Star was actually originated by the Japanese Amateur Radio Club or system or whatever they call it. Like D-Mark was Motorola's Amateur Radio Club. So I don't know how open source it started off as, but I don't believe it was actually fully developed by any one company.
MIC.
Go ahead, Mark, please.
I can comment a little bit as I follow the D-Star market closely. I own an ICOM IC7100, which does D-Star, and I'm speaking on a Kenwood D74, Delta 74, which does D-Star. The previous speaker was correct. The protocol was developed by the National Japanese Amateur Radio organization, and neither ICOM nor Kenwood owns that protocol.
WQ about D-Star?
Go ahead, WIQ.
D-Star uses a two-tone method to make a digital pattern, just like Packet used to do with older systems. So anyway, I thought I'd mention that. And I don't know whether all of them use a dual tone to digitize the signal, but on the other hand, that's been around so long that anybody can use a dual tone method. Now, one amateur radio club meeting, Bob gave a seminar on how dual tone worked, but on the other hand, it's just one of those things that's been around a while. It's fairly common to have signals sent that way, digital signals sent that way. But anyway, N0WIQ, back to net.
I guess I'm
0 ASP with a question.
proprietary type digital services out there. Am I wrong about that or right?
You doubled, Joe. I didn't hear the whole question. N1RDC.
Oh, if somebody had a comment, please come back.
W0 ASP with a question.
Oh, go ahead, Terry. Thank you.
Questions about digital radio has always been the proprietary nature of it. And the ICOM and the ASU systems are indeed proprietary. How open in terms of intellectual freedom is the DMR protocol? Is that simply something that it is licensed widely, or is it truly an open source protocol?
N0 EMP.
EMP, go ahead.
Terry just gave me a perfect segue to a comment I had, and I can use my comment to answer his question. So, first of all, we're talking about digital radio all the time, and it even happened tonight at the start of your introduction. You mentioned FT8, and then you started talking about D-Star and some other things. There's two completely different subjects here. One of them is digital data, which includes the FT8, the Whisper, JT65, PSK31, all those data modes that you use a computer and any regular analog radio like an HF radio to send and receive. So that's digital data. The other half of this whole discussion is amateur radio digital voice. I'll let this reset here. So with amateur radio digital voice, we have a bunch of different protocols we can use now. We can buy different radios, and we can buy hotspots and open spots and DV mega boards and things that will let us use these different modes. The most common ones are DMR, D-Star, Fusion, and P25, and there's some other ones that you can get into as well. One issue is none of these modes talk with any other mode. You can have a narrowband FM analog radio, and it will talk to any other narrowband FM analog radio that's out there. We're all talking on an analog repeater right now, and we've got people out there using Kenwoods and ICOMs and Baofangs and all sorts of things, high terras and who knows what else, and they all work together. When you start to get into D-Star, DMR, fusion, you get into what I call the balkanization of amateur radio, where you're going to have different groups using different protocols that can't talk to each other. Let me reset once more and I'll get to Terry's question. At the heart of all of these digital voice modes is a thing called a codec. It's a coder-decoder. It takes the analog voice from the microphone, turns it into a digital stream that's transmitted by one of these protocols, and on the other end, that digital stream from the receiver goes back through the codec and turns into audio to come out the speaker. The codec that is used by all these modes, including D-Star, which people call open source, the codec itself at the heart of everything is proprietary. It's an AMBE, Advanced Multiband Excitation Codec, patented by Digital Voice Systems Incorporated, and it's only available under license for all these modes, including D-Star. I draw you to the Wikipedia page for D-Star, scroll down to criticisms, and the first criticism is proprietary codec. So when people start talking about open source, they have to be careful what they're referring to. The codec itself in the heart of this is still not an open source codec, N0EMP.
LAO with a question.
Go ahead, Luann.
Well, Greg really kind of gave me a good segue into why is Aries going to DMR, being emergency services and reliant on the internet?
I suppose you want me to answer that.
Well, that was a perfect double. Can somebody come back?
I said I suppose you want me to answer that, huh?
Well, that's only if you want to.
Well, it's top secret, you know, I'd have to... Anyway, okay, I'll tell you what it is. For one thing, the DMR that we're using will not be internet reliant. What we're dealing with is talk groups that are linked repeaters, and we have as many on, I think it's, and I'm sorry about the numbers, I used to know them, but I don't now. One of the major ones, we have 25 linked repeaters on the same one, and they're permanently linked. Then we have our local, which I think has 10, if I remember right. I'll let this drop for a minute. Now, why we're doing it, I'll tell you. We are not totally going to DMRs, but we are required by the state of Colorado to come back and says our emergency response will be on DMR radios for Aries with an analog backup. Now, I don't know, that may change. Again, just like our Oxcon stuff changes about weekly. But that's the reason we're doing it. The state and the counties are required to be on a DMR system. Now, the other ones we're looking at, the Red Cross and various other places like that, we're looking at them and saying, well, what are you being told by your major people? And so it isn't something we really care to do, but it's something we're somewhat required. I hope that answered your question.
Thank you, Joe. That totally answers my question. So, well, back to Ned.
WCR with a question. Go ahead, WCR.
Yeah, this is Kilo Delta Whiskey Charlie Romeo, Russell and Highlands Ranch. My question is that the DMR being a more reliable signal than the analog?
You know, I'm so new at it, I can't tell you. Is there somebody else who's been in both analog and digital stuff to actually give that answer?
WIQ again.
Go ahead, Carrie, please.
All the digital modes are competing with CB as far as getting low signals through. But on the other hand, as far as being reliable, if you get a reliable link, you can do talk through it and use and be reliable than even low signal, single sideband or anything else. But on the other hand, down to it, digital radios aren't quite as good as CW for doing some low signal passing and all that kind of stuff. So, because CW is a signal, no signal, and there's supposed to be the difference between the signal and the no signal. And so it's just one of those things where the digital modes never turn off the carrier, or they never turn off the carrier all the way, or anything like that. They are just a digital screen that's put on the carrier. So it's my comment. So as far as being reliable, well, if you have enough of them going around to use the digital streaming, it's just as reliable as anything else. But on the other hand, it has its shortcomings as well as almost any other modulation mode.
N0 BTC with comment.
N0 BTE, go ahead.
Yep, it's November 0 Bravo Tango Charlie over here in Minneapolis, Minnesota. My comment is that DMR, I don't know about the other modes because I haven't used them enough, but I know for a fact that DMR is not necessarily reliant on the internet. You can do DMR simplex, and you can do DMR local 9, which doesn't get routed to the internet, and it's just as if you were using a repeater in analog mode. It's just a digital, it's basically the same thing as using the repeater in analog mode, except that it's digital. And that talk group is local 9. It uses talk group 9, and generally it uses time slot 2, but the repeater owner can decide that one. As I said, there is DMR simplex, and so if you're in close enough proximity to somebody, you can do DMR simplex with them, and they generally use talk group 99 with color code 1 and time slot 1 for that purpose.
EMP. I think I doubled with you, Joe, N0 EMP.
Go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, leaving the internet out of it for a minute and just talking about radio paths and talking radio to radio. And I know D-Star will also do simplex. I think all these digital voice modes will do simplex if you want to. Analog, the analog modes, FM, AM, sideband, as the signal gets weaker, it starts to degrade and the audio starts getting worse and worse and worse until it gets to where it's barely intelligible at some point. Digital has error correction built in, so as long as enough bits get through that it can do the math and figure out the missing ones, you don't have that degradation in the audio until all of the sudden it gets to a point where it doesn't work at all. So it goes from working to not working, and it's called falling off a cliff. And I know in law enforcement, over the last 10 or more years, a lot of the agencies, most of them have gone to digital voice, typically P25, and there have been problems where all of a sudden you're suddenly in a dead spot, and there's no voice getting through at all, and it's better to get scratchy, bad audio through than no audio at all. As to at what point you can't get any analog through versus at what point you can't get digital through at all, and which one works better at that point, I don't know. But I know the way that they fail is different, where analog falls off gracefully and digital just all of a sudden will quit and 0 EMP.
WIQ with a comment about that.
WIQ, go ahead.
I say I don't know about all the modes and how they do it, but on the other hand, D-Star uses an FM radio, and FM is a lot like everything else. You have to have enough signal for the FM to be decoded. And so that's one situation where it already is partially shielded against dropouts in that respect. But on the other hand, if an FM signal can't get through with enough power to carry the audio, it's not going to work very well either. But doing a digital mode, I don't know if all of them are an FM radio or not. But on the other hand, the digital mode on top of the FM radio will also carry signals to a very low level and still have good audio through them. But when they're gone, they're gone. I won't argue that point. Back to Nets.
GM, go ahead.
I just had a question about the codec. Do the other digital modes use the same codec as D-Star, or do they all have their own? This is AE0.
EMP, you want to handle that?
From what I understand, and from what I saw in Wikipedia, they all use the same codec from DVSI. The difference is between the D-Star and the DMR and all these other modes is how it processes the data and formats it and does error correction and stuff once that voice is turned into a digital stream or vice versa. So it's everything surrounding the codec that's different, but it looks like the codec at the heart of all these modes is one codec that's licensed, and that the way they do it with D-Star is you actually need a chip. You need a microchip that does the processing, that implements the codec, and you have to buy that chip under license for your radio.
U0ASP with a comment.
Terry, you have the floor. Go ahead.
I must admit that this proprietary technology involved in the digital radios has kept me away from engaging in it. And I do have to admit that it has a great advantage to governments because they can simply encrypt all their transmissions using this technology and prevent all of us from figuring out what they're doing. W0ASP, back to net.
Unfortunately, I think you're right on. It is what it is, I guess. Any other comments or questions?
N0 BTC.
BTC, go ahead.
Yeah, that about government and whatever encrypting their traffic kind of opens a whole other can of worms that we probably shouldn't get into here. But at least with the police, since they are a taxpayer-funded agency, unless it's absolutely critical to people's survival and to whatever they're doing, you really shouldn't have encrypted traffic. We should be able to listen to them. I know they talk about criminals listening to police traffic and whatever to know when they're coming and stuff like that. But unless it's absolutely vital, stuff like that should not be encrypted. And as them being a taxpayer agency, I think we, the people, have the right to demand that of them.
Well, that gets into political discussions, and if this is really not the forum for that, I would rather really not do that. But there are good points. Don't get me wrong. I agree, but they are good points for that type of thing. Any other comments about digitals and this and that? And I'm not knocking them. My personal feeling is that because of the way, and this all depends on where you're at too. Because of the way that Rocky Mountain Colorado Connection have set up their network of digital repeaters, it makes sense for areas as a whole to look at for certain type of things. Let's just drop for a minute. I will give you the one example that we were going to have issues with, and that's Fort Morgan's a hospital. We were going to send somebody over there, but the only thing we were going to send him over there was a 380 handheld because all they have is a digital repeater over there. Well, that ties into a repeater that's over here on Horsetooth, so that made sense for us to do that. Again, it's more of a type of thing where we have this great network. Why aren't we using it? And I guess that is probably the best way to explain it as far as Aries goes. I've got two. I've got a 380, a 380G, which has got something special in it, and also a 9600. And I have not used it a lot at all, but we're going to probably start using them a little bit more because of that particular thing. Any other comments or questions about anything digital? Well, the clock on the wall says it's about 1:15, so I think we're going to call it a night. I'd like to thank each and every one of you for doing this. Again, we have 5 different people that are going to do this. Next night, next week, Wayne is going to take over, and I don't know what topic he's going to do, but I'm sure it'll be a good one because he's a pretty smart guy. I'd like to thank everybody who's on here who's just listening. I understand that I had some emails come in says I haven't got my license because the feds were closed today. I understand that. It's happened to me too. So I want to thank you very much. And when you get on, make sure you come back here to the TechNet. So I like to say 73s to everybody, and I hope that the snow doesn't get you tomorrow. This is Katie's there. TY, you're going to be clear. Thanks again.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.